welcome to another episode of Two One World. Two One World. I cannot even talk anymore. And we have a very special and a very exciting episode because we have our first guest. Our first guest is Viktor Kuru from Chicago, and I'm very pleased to be here with him right now at the moment at his house. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you. And let's do it. How are you, Edu?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's actually 3 dudes, 1 world now. So I'm super excited. And the coolest thing is that Viktor, I had the joy to meet Viktor before, and he actually has family from Poland and the Czech Republic. So I think he's going to bring a lot of multiculturalism to this conversation. And from what I heard and the things I talked with him, he has a super interesting story, and it's going to make this episode unique and awesome.
Absolutely. So welcome, Viktor, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and it's my parents' house. They let both of us stay here.
Okay, yes. So we have to thank them as well. Yeah. Today, like kind of non-traditionally, we're going to be enjoying beer together. Because we didn't have kozel, a Czech beer, because we didn't have access to the Edu and Matej. But I think it will work, especially for this kind of conversation. So cheers. Viktor, please, for the beginning, could you like briefly introduce yourself? Tell us your story, your life story. What you studied? What led you to current situation? Anything exciting?
Yeah. My story is I started playing violin when I was 5, because my parents they had a good idea that I could learn music. So I started playing violin when I was 5. I ended up taking it quite seriously, and I ended up studying music as a profession. So I went to music school 4 years, got my undergrad, and now I work in finance. I did a year. I did all through high school or college rather, and about like a year and a half after college, I was full-time music. But then I sort of made the transition into finance now, which is where I'm working now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool thing, and there's also one like side theme of our podcast. You know, we all are musicians. We like music; it's like a big passion of ours. But we're not sure if it's something that we want to do for a living. And you're a great example that you actually took a different path after you finished this music school, while you're still being very skillful, very talented musician, and you have very great skills. So it's pretty cool. So how do you feel with having this musical background right now, going to the office with all the finance people? How does it feel for you? What's your emotions?
Yeah. Well, I'm still figuring it out how to navigate it because it's been a recent transition. But it's been a couple months now, and you know what? It's interesting because I feel like having a real job sort of gave me the flexibility that I wanted with music. You know, because you know how it is as a musician. Oftentimes, if you're a full-time musician, you have to do things that you don't want to do. You got to play gigs you don't want to play. You have to work really odd hours. You know what I mean? Like playing a gig until 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. You know, there's all kinds of downsides to relying on music. Full-time. So having the full-time finance job, it sort of allows me to explore what I want to explore, and then I also have really great opportunities to play what I want to play. Like, for example, I mean, you're here the whole weekend and we're having just a great time.
Playing around, goofing around. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's what we also talked about, and Edu, you can maybe elaborate on this. Like, when you have to focus on music in the way of making a living, it takes the joy out of that. Because you really like music, but then you have to really be hustling just to make money through music. Like, oh my gosh, I don't really want to do it. I want to play my kind of music that I enjoy, and I want to keep experimenting. But when you need to make money, when you're a musician, you will join a group, orchestra, or you will be an independent musician gigging, and that becomes kind of tricky to experiment and do these things because then you're tired and you want to just sleep.
In the Hispanic culture, there's this big thing going like, all the professionally trained musicians end up playing either mariachi or cumbia. So like they can play in like weddings and stuff to make money. And it's funny because they will go through the same path that you mentioned, that Viktor went. Like when you need to start making money out of music, music becomes a job, right? And like, yes, it's awesome to be passionate about your job, but it's completely different. So I'm just curious to see how you manage your stuff, Matej, because like you're taking music I think from the 3 of us, Matej is the only one that is actually profiting on music right now as a musician. I am a teacher, yes, I teach music, but that doesn't mean that I have a lot of gigs, that music is my main source of income. I'm an educator. Viktor works for the bank, right? So now, Matej, it leaves you. What is the way you're managing, navigating through like make money through music?
Yeah, so I don't think that I do like as many things like to be profitable through music. Maybe even I have the notion that maybe you do more things like when it comes to gigging at this point. I'm trying to do gigs, but it's not as common, it's not as often as I wanted to because of my instrument, and I'm scared to carry it all the way to different gigs. So I played at some banks and some events, but it's not as common. Maybe if I play 2-3 times a month for me at this point, that's probably the thing. But I heard that you were always having some side gigs or things happening.
Yeah, I'm sort of lucky with the. It's kind of interesting, the intersectionality of like being Polish in Chicago. There's so many gigs. Like how you brought up mariachi and cumbia. We have the same thing. We have górale, which is like the southern region of Poland, and weddings is a huge thing for Polish people. I mean, they're massive weddings, and there's a lot of music going on. There's a lot of traditional music. So how you guys have mariachi, or not you, Edu, but like how Mexican culture they have mariachi at the weddings and stuff like that. There's Polish people have górale, which is like they dress up in a strój, right? And they play, and so I do a lot of that.
They use the cello as the bass.
Yeah,
right?
I have one right over there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. So like you're taking advantage of those like communities connected to the Polish culture to have like so many gigs. Actually, it's also something that, as you asked, connected in my case. I'm here to play for Czech people.
Yeah.
So the communities are very helpful. So in this way, I wish I could have more gigs connected to American culture, going out, play for like variety of audiences. But at this point, I'm trying to find the proper way for it. So hopefully, after I finish my masters, I'll find a good niche for that. But what I want to cover right now, I think it's a very interesting topic for us. It's something that I really admire about you, and it's also confirmed the fact that music is a very beneficial thing to do for any of us, no matter the field. Because you studied music, but you got into the, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the equity broker, right? Or like a investment broker, right?
Equities and derivatives trader, broker, stockbroker.
Stockbroker, trader, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very competitive field. It's very hard to get into it. It requires solid knowledge and understanding of a major that is completely different from music. But because you went through the music education, maybe you got some very cool skills and ways how you prepared for it. And so how music helped you in the way of getting prepared for this kind of field to be accepted to start this new career?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that what I think music, especially when you do it at a really high level, music teaches you how to do hard things. You know what I mean? It's the training of doing difficult things that I think really prepares you for being good at anything. Because most things that are worth doing are not easy. So it's you have to really. If you're a musician and a serious musician, I think that you have that so ingrained in your head that nothing is easy. And to play anything, you need to really work at it. So being able to take that sort of work ethic, and like the way that you learn, because with music, it's such a fine, like very small details. You develop the skill, which is learning. And so when you learn about things like what I used to do is I used to just read as much as I could about whatever it was I was interested with, stocks or options, because options is really the thing that I do. That's what my job is. That's the big part of it, the options part of it. So I try to learn as much as I could about options and derivatives and how they trade and all that stuff. And I think that my music background, in terms of like just being stubborn and figuring stuff out, sort of.
How do you think this musical background helped you personally wise when it comes to communicate with people? Like you need to meet so many like new people who are like in a very crazy positions, have been doing it for like whole life. Is it easier for you to be like more empathetic, maybe because of music?
Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to like kind of lead you to the answer.
No.
But like, how does it help you to develop people skills?
Yeah, I mean, think about it like this, right? Like me and you, we're friends through music.
Yes.
So us as well.
Yes.
I think when you meet other musicians, it's almost like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like we're the same people. We get it, So like musicians can get along with other musicians really well. As long as you're cool and whatever. But I think also it's such an interesting thing because like me and you, for example, tomorrow at this Czech thing, everyone there is older than us. You know what I mean? And so we had to really exactly, and you have you had your professors, your teachers. your other musicians that are older and more experienced than you that you really looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think dealing with that, it really sets you up to be a respectful, humble individual.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know what I mean? Like being a musician really sets you up to be a respectful, humble individual. And that lends itself well to people skills.
No, absolutely. I agree. I would like sign the contract with this. Cool.
I actually have something else to add related to how music can impact your working field, and this is because when I was a senior in college, I got this email of a scholarship opportunity to go to Washington D.C. You actually got it, right, Matej? Like to go to Washington D.C. Through the South Dakota World Affairs Council, which was basically all about international relationships and how you can go and promote the state of South Dakota and yada yada. So I used the topic of music as a vessel for cultural understanding and bridging the gaps with like international cultures. And I think that they chose me not because of my qualifications in diplomacy and like international politics, because everybody in that conference was like an international politics major. There were like a lot of law students and I was just the only music person. But because music helps you develop a creative approach to the common standard, you know, like maybe Victor, you know this better than anybody. In your branch, in the place you work, everybody that comes with a financial degree or some sort of business degree, they all think the same because they all have been trained within the same basis. But you come with a fresh perspective and you are trying to adapt to that. So you basically take both things from both worlds, right? Like the best things from both worlds, and you create your own unique outcome, which ultimately results in you creating different opportunities, thinking outside of the box and making something unique and awesome that is what people appreciate.
Yeah, and actually it's funny because I don't know what like regular finance is. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but like regular finance, like I don't know, like bond traders, or I really don't know what else, like you know, finance. When it comes to like the stockbroker type thing, where it's creative problem solving, because there is a lot of creative problem solving, especially with the derivatives trading. Like when you think about what kind of option strategy works for whatever particular thing, there's a lot of creative problem solving. There's also, in terms of just like option dynamics, there's a lot of creativity there. So what I think about, but what I'm getting to with that is that the people that I work with, a lot of them did not study finance, which is hilarious. For example, my boss studied history. The lady in front of me, he studied history. The lady in front of me, she studied painting, and they, you know, these are people that are just so good at what they do. They're so intelligent. They're so well experienced. And they're excellent at what they do. And you know, these people didn't even study finance. So I think, I don't know, it's just, the big thing is that what you study in school does not define what you have to do with your life, you know?
Can you imagine how different the movie The Wolf of Wall Street would be if he actually studied cello? Like he was like
really good plot, you know, all of a sudden he's on stage performing Dvořák's concerto.
Yeah, no, but actually, like relating to that, our choir teacher, he went to Harvard to study political science, and he ended up conducting choir. So it can go both ways, like not necessarily to music, to another field, but another field. Yeah. Taking advantage of all the organization tools you learn and applying it into music, because both fields have, music is so diverse and so, adaptable, that you can bring skills from any background and make it work.
Yeah, and you have so many genres of music, oh my gosh. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just classical, it's not just folk, there's so many different genres.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's funny that you mentioned that they went from like a different industry into music. Most musicians leave music because they're like, I need to find a real job, you know?
Absolutely. But I think the thing that has also connected three of us together is that while we did music with lots of love and lots of passion, with lots of hard work as well, we always had some kind of hunger for like being well-rounded person, not only great musicians and being defined as musicians, but being like person who is adaptable, who is understanding what's going on in the world, and always like trying to seek new knowledge and information, right?
Yeah.
So as we said before, the music community is well connected because you understand the other people. We also got upon the same problem that sometimes many of those music people can be sometimes a little bit quite too into just music. And kind of putting blinders around their eyes, like, okay, I'm a musician, that's it, and this is the holy grail, and I cannot do other things, or I'm going to be kind of selling myself.
Yeah.
So how to fight this balance? What do you think is the best approach to?
Yeah. So where I went to music school, there was it was very top heavy. Which what I mean by that is that there's a lot of people that were doing master's degrees, performance diplomas, doctorates in music performance. You know what I mean, and education actually. Especially education, and an interesting statistic that I heard, which I need to make sure that this is correct, but I'm pretty sure it is. I heard that the number one major that leads to people being most in debt after school is neuroscience.
Okay.
Which makes sense, because it's a very difficult field. You need to have a lot of education. You are literally a human mechanic on people's brains. That is the top echelon of what your skill level is. And then number two is education.
Seriously.
So you have these, you know what I'm saying? You have people that are going, that they're doing like years and years and years and years and years of school, and they get stuck in this trap of just doing more music, and more education. And it's such a trap because like they end up, you know, the market, like what you can do with music is most of the time, it's not really your education balance. It's your skill capped. You're not degree capped.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You can't be a neuroscience guy without a doctorate. You know what I'm saying? You can play wherever you want with
Without
no
any
bachelor's degree.
Yes.
You don't even need a bachelor. If you're good enough, you're good enough. You know what I mean? Hilary Hahn, the greatest violinist of our time, has a bachelor's degree. You know what I'm saying? So it's I saw a lot of people that were doing 10 years at IU, that they were like, this is my 10th year playing violin at this school. And I was like, I am staying here for 4 years and not a second more. I need to find something else. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. And I was also surrounded by a different, we were just talking about this yesterday. Classical musicians are kraptinology, right? They're like a horse with blinders on.
Yes.
And they're like,
narrow at some point.
yeah. I think a lot of basic math is not done at all by musicians. Like, how much is this school going to cost me? How much am I going to make? What is my opportunity cost? Like, I'm gonna go away for 2 years. I have to move, or a lot of people move. Like IU, there's people that totally put their life on pause to go do a master's degree. And I think a lot of people are doing that math. Also for violinists, I'm buying a $50,000 violin. I'm gonna make 30 for the first 2 years out of school. You know? And it's one of those things where it's just
People just don't even think about it.
and I saw that every single day, where like every single day, man, at a music school. That's what I saw.
Why do you think it might be? Is it because maybe music is so like emotionally like requiring things, so you develop like a big passion and love for the music, and then you start thinking critically, maybe what's going to be happening after that, and we tend to believe like, okay, we're gonna be the musicians, we're gonna make it happen, we're gonna be playing, but statistically wise, it's just a very small percentage of those people who will be performing stars and actually making money through it, right?
You know what?
People don't think about it.
You know what's funnier? That most of the people that are actually making money are not as professional as the musicians that are actually like devoting their entire career. Like, you know, most of the musicians that have years of training are gonna be the background musicians for like big names, like all the big names that you can think of, like even like all the pop stars that I can think of, like a lot of Latin artists have musicians from Berkeley in their backlining, like that play saxophone, like trombone and stuff for salsa. But the singer doesn't have all the music and training that those guys have. Like those musicians are way more. And I think it's because it all goes to the mentality of romanticizing that music defines your identity. And that's the problem. When you go to a school that is solely music, you're going to be surrounded by people that only see themselves as musicians. Like maybe that's the joy that Matej and I had for going to Northern State University, that we were surrounded with a variety of people, and the music department was so small that we were able to hang out with international students that were not music students. Like if we would have been to a bigger college, all the international crowd would have been musicians, right? And I don't know, the best way I can relate to this, have you seen the movie Soul?
A long time ago.
Well, I'm just gonna give a spoiler here. If you haven't seen the movie, cover your ears or whatever. But basically, the whole movie,
The one with the jazz musician, the thing,
yeah,
right?
the whole movie revolves about this life, the life of a jazz musician that dreamed to have the gig with a big group of artists, like with a professional jazz band. And then in the movie, he dies. He has an accident and he dies. And he realizes that all his life was wasted following that romanticization, that dream of like, oh, once I reach the gig of my life is going to be perfect. And then for some reason in the movie, he ends up coming back to life. He has the gig with the band of his dreams. And after that, he thinks his life is going to be awesome. But after that, he realizes like, oh shit, this just happened. Now what? Like he realizes that he has accomplished his dream, but it doesn't, like he has been so settled in the idea that he needs to have this band, and he realizes that his life is empty because he didn't work in anything else but music. And that's a problem. That's a problem of being so goal oriented as a musician. Once you achieve your goal, now what? Like, where am I standing? I have nothing else but music.
It's like undergrad. What's my next goal? Masters. What's my next goal?
Yes.
Performance. Because you get stuck in the thing of doing music. Edu, I think you hit it exactly on the head, because you said musicians, they claim music as their identity.
Yes.
Which is massive. Because listen, if you got a corporate job, like if you're an accountant or if you're a broker or if whatever, you're not like, this is my identity. But there's something special about music, being a full-time musician, a full-time artist. You're like, this is who I am, this is what I do. I wake up and practice 4 hours a day. You know, so it's just one of those things, man. Like, I think people that they have one identity. They have one identity, like, I am a musician, this is what I do. And then they never develop other skills. Or if they do, it's because they have to. Because they're like, okay, I'm at my lifeline. My parents don't want to support me anymore. Now I'm like 30 and I got to find out what I'm going to do with myself.
Yeah.
So I saw that all the time in music school, bro. It's like, people they make music their identity, and then they're not interested in pursuing anything else.
It's also like relatable to the investing. It's like they're putting their eggs into one basket.
Everything.
No bonds, no stocks.
backup.
They're just like one all in, which is
not just diversifying.
amazing. But statistically wise, unless you're like super talented with a great background with private teachers and everything, it's very less likely that you will be able to do the dream that is being like drawn upon during those schools and the community.
And I think a lot of people don't even make it that far, what you just said. I don't even think people have a plan. I really don't. If you talk to these people that are doing like a performance diploma, it's their 7th year of school, they're, it's like, so what's your plan? I don't know, maybe a doctorate after this? It's like, what are you talking about? What is your plan? It's like, well, I don't know, I might get a doctorate after this. It's like, that's not a plan. That's peaceful.
I just need to get there to have my life figured out, but it's not gonna happen because you're just like having this bubble that floats and floats and floats and floats, and you just keep wanna get high, but then your bubble's gonna pop, and then you're like, oh, where do I grab myself?
Exactly, and you're inflating this bubble that you're wasting time. You know what I mean? You're also growing as a musician. But I mean, the question is like, do you think if you didn't go to school, you just totally focused on your playing and whatever your goal was, don't you think you'd be better off than if you went and you have a guided curriculum you have to pay a lot of money for, that kind of thing? Like, don't you think you'd be better off just like, for example, now I cannot go do a master's degree in violin, but I can go practice really hard for 2 years. You know what I mean? I don't need music history 504 or 501
just to learn it and then forget it again.
Exactly. Just so I can get the master's degree.
Yes.
So I think that's sort of this sort of thinking of what's next or what else is in the world besides music. I think that's a thought that a lot of pro musicians that are studying music don't really have.
And when it doesn't mean like you have to find the answer for it, but if you don't even think about it, then when the time comes, you will need to figure it out, and then you're wasting the potential that you could use the time for.
That's why I think that platforms like Skillshare or like Udemy or things like that are so priceless for us right now. We have the joy and the availability to choose any field we want as a side hobby, to experiment a little bit and develop new skills. I got into this social media marketing course, and it was I mean I of course I went with the intention of learning about music and how can I apply to music, but I learned so much more, and that was awesome. So like maybe a way, as not a solution, but a way that people can start getting unstuck from the mindset of music is my whole identity is just like trying a course of something that they are not good at. Like for example, I downloaded an app of math, and I realized like, oh crap, I love doing math. Like I just love solving simple equations, and that trains my brain to think differently, and that opens my perspectives, and it makes me smarter in a way, right? Matej, what is your input on this? Because I know that you have been taking those Skillshare courses, or maybe it's something different. So like, what have you taken? How it has helped you become a more rounded up person?
Yeah, like it's a broad topic. I don't want to spend so much time on it because we have to finish pretty soon. But just,
2 minutes.
yeah, I think keep expanding the horizons within any field is extremely important, because then you'll be able to develop much more empathy for things that are going on. And if the purpose of us being here in this planet is maybe make the world a little bit better place, you know, if we're gonna be too self-absorbed with one thing that we do, we will not be able to understand the other problems happening across the fields. So for example, you know, like I'm dealing with this like problem, I cannot play this piece properly, and the other people cannot like understand absolutely why it is important, you know. So trying to get the different understanding in order to be able to share this common problem, because we all go through some kind of suffering across the field. So if we explore at least a little bit of understanding from other fields, we're able to communicate better as people, and I think this is important in general. Yes, I'll give you like a very broad picture because unfortunately we're in a hurry.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keep expanding in order to be more empathetic, in order to be able to communicate with more people, in order to make this world a little bit better, so you can cross communicate.
Yeah.
And if you want to live a better life, oh shoot, sorry, Victor, you can go.
No, go ahead.
No, I somebody told me if you want to live a good life, you need to focus in 3 aspects: body, mind and spirit. So like work on yourself, work on your body, make sure you're healthy, make sure you look good, make sure your mind is in a good place, and nurture your spirit also. Like I don't know, like how many of you guys do volunteering stuff, or like maybe you have a hobby that's completely different from finances or music? Like that's some question for, let's food for thought. Like try to live a balanced life, because everything in excess is bad. Like regardless of how positive it is for the world, if you overdo it, it's just bad.
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately what it comes down to is there's a little bit of a stigma with musicians when it comes to becoming more multifaceted people. You know what I mean? Like learning another skill for a musician, they're like, why? If I could just do this. Yeah, but I definitely think that it's good.
Also hard to learn other skills when you're a musician, because you're so focused getting something perfect. Let's say you're pressing piece and you're always spending so much time in one thing.
You become a perfectionist.
Yes, so if I want to do something, I also want to be perfect, because that's what I'm used to, that's how I work. So even though it can be a very good skill, but it can hurt your natural excitement and process of learning other things. We don't have to be experts for everything, but if we have at least some understanding, then it can improve all the different aspects.
Right. Being a beginner is such a joy, bro. Like I started playing soccer out of nowhere. I suck at it, but I love it, because like I am allowed to make mistakes. I enjoy learning. I enjoy the progress. And that's something exciting that you forget. Like the thing that got you into music and that got you to the place where you are is like overcoming those little obstacles to the point like you realize, oh man, that piece was awesome. Like, or like when I played this concerto was perfect, and that gets you fueled. So like restarting in a new skill, when I got into soccer, I was just like scored my first goal. I was like, damn, that's awesome. Like I celebrated that small victory. Of course, we played with a horrible team and like nothing compared with like real soccer, but celebrating the small victories and enjoying the excitement of a new skill can fuel you to get you better in life.
I think we should make a deal, guys. Like next time when we all meet together, we should try to do something super random. We all of us have never tried before, and just try what it feels like.
Yeah.
Well, Viktor, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and the knowledge, because it actually is very valuable for us, because we both study in South Dakota. You know, as much cool as it was for us coming to the US to the new environment, it was still somehow limited for the resources that we are exposed to. So hearing someone from the bigger city, from much bigger resources with this experience is very, very cool for us. So really thank you for that.
Yeah.
Na zdraví, guys. Na zdraví. Happy
zdraví.
Easter.
So is that yerba mate, by the way?
Yeah, yeah, the
Are you doing hot water or cold?
Make sure to follow us and make sure to check the previous episodes. 3 dudes, 1 world. 2 dudes, 1 world. 1 dude, 1 world. It's just one world.
Awesome. See you guys next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.